From ancient times, man has worked in groups. He has hunted in groups, herded, formed colonies, and as such has always been a team worker. This participatory approach has by far been the most significant aspect of his existence and civilization. Watershed development projects are no exception to this rule. The success of these projects depends upon unified participation from the villagers desiring to undertake such an effort. The preconditions for implementation of a watershed project are ban on cutting of trees in the project area or Korarbandi, controlled grazing or Charaibandi, and Shramdaan, which means voluntary contribution of labor. Shramdaan, which asks people to contribute their time, labor and resources for the project, is indeed a difficult task. If the villagers come together to undertake Shramdaan, immense possibilities open up. It can catalyze the creative energies of a community, foster bonds of solidarity, and create a dynamic for change.
If you see the situation during the past 50 years, people would do Shramdan perhaps for building a temple. But doing Shramdan on a watershed project, which should be technically perfect, is a difficult task. This thought itself is new, and unlike other programs, people cannot commit to do work and then later back out. This was the reason it took us an additional month to complete the Shramdan, but in the end, we achieved it.
Shramdaan for religious purposes evokes a spontaneous response. The same spontaneous enthusiasm is not easily forthcoming in matters pertaining to development of community infrastructure, watershed development being one such example. What is Shramdaan? What is voluntary contribution all about? And why is it so necessary in community development projects?
Historically, certain things have been done by people through Shramdaan, like say a particular community may contribute for a statue, or yet another community may build a hall or a meeting place for people. But then, to collectively work on everybody's farms and construct bunds or dig an irrigation tank usually is never done. In most of the villages, the social contribution are for activities having a religious touch. One finds very little social participation in those activities having a commercial or monetary aspect, or for that matter, issues pertaining to health and education. But for religious purposes, maybe because of spiritual element or maybe because of the fear of God, people do not mind contributing.
The issue is this: what is given freely or what comes free is never valued by anybody. And so, if you want to first identify what people really want and need, the only way you can identify is, if you look at it in the market economy, is how much are they willing to pay for something. And in the developmental field, to what extent are they willing to contribute? That is an indicator of how much people really need a particular thing or a particular activity. Otherwise, what happens is, if you give it free, then it's more a reflection of your need rather than theirs. So for you, the indicator or the gauge by which you can know how much people really want.
Tambol village in Sangamner Taluka consists mainly of landholders. It used to be reasonably affluent before low rainfalls made the position of the villages critical.
90% of our population are landholders, while just 10% are landless laborers. Some of these landless people used to question about the project's benefit for them. But then we explained to them. We said, it's true, you do not own lands here, but you too live in village. If we implement watershed project, will it not benefit all of us? At least the problem of drinking water will be solved for everybody.
Some of us had seen the watershed program in the neighboring village, but the others had not and did not know anything about it.
They thought that only the poor people would be forced to contribute. The landlords and the leaders will not do any work. But when we leaders ourselves took the lead and contributed Shramdaan, people slowly began joining in.
But then there were some people who were still adamant. Then we all took a collective decision of not allowing these people to purchase anything from the village, and we boycotted them.
Sometimes action is necessary to get community work done. Such was the case with Kedar Vadgaon. Kedar Vadgaon is in the Kandahar Taluka of Nanded district of Maharashtra. After drought hit the village and water became scarce, the villagers, most of them substantial landholders, got together. Here, water was not just a basic need, but also the key to wealth and social status. Yet, when the village elders decided to implement the watershed project, there was opposition from some quarters.
Some people had doubt and did not wish to participate in the program. So we had to convince everyone that the watershed program was good for our village as well as our lives. We held 2 to 3 village meetings. The opposition was mainly due to lack of knowledge about the project. Some people felt that the people promoting the program might be having vested interest and were doing so for their personal and monetary gains, as witnessed in many such schemes.
It took 20 days more to get people around and complete the Shramdaan.
As in Tambol village, here too the village watershed committee took strong measures to enforce compliance.
We gave an ultimatum to few people who continued to oppose the program. We told them that no one will work on their farms, so they buckled under pressure and contributed. There were problems during the first 4 Shramdaans, but now people have understood the concept.
Women play an important role in Shramdaan activities. Usually they provide the bulk of the labor contribution, especially in villages where the majority are either marginal farmers or landless laborers, as in Sabkun village. Here, women largely contributed the initial Shramdaans because the men go out in search of a livelihood and the women are left to look after hearth and farm. Even so, they do not have any effective decision-making roles. Women are often key agents of change. They motivate and prod the men. In Jun Mohite, the women introduced the menfolk to the possibilities that watershed development offered and actively canvassed for its adoption.
When the self-help group activity was being promoted, the lady social worker promised to bring watershed program to our village, provided if we could mobilize the entire village community. So we took 2 gram sabhas and most of us agreed.
Need is one factor which drives people to take up watershed projects, and the people are willing initially to accept any condition laid before them. Often, however, this is easier promised than done. Nandurbar has a hot climate, and these red pepper fields dotting the road to the village of Zun Mohide give an idea of the blistering summer and acute water shortages it endures. Yet Zun Mohide had difficulty in mobilizing the necessary social consensus because it was driven by long-running rivalries, factionalism, and bickering.
I told them, if your political leaders can solve your water problems, it is okay with us. We would take up another village for implementing watershed program. Then the people discussed the issue among themselves. One of them said that if they had to resolve their water problems through their political leaders, it would probably take 10 years or maybe more. So I told them that if they understood this, why did they not forget their political differences and join hands for collective benefit? The people unanimously decided that there would be no politics over this issue, and all of them took an oath in the temple. In the Gram Sabha, I asked the people whether they understood the concept of Shramdaan and whether they were willing to do Shramdaan for themselves. A few hands went up and most of them were women. So I asked whether only the women of Zun Mohide felt the need for water, or was it felt by everybody? I realized that if more women show enthusiasm and participate initially, there could be problems from the men folk. The men would feel that the watershed program was interfering in their personal lives. So I decided to motivate men too.
Today, the situation is different. Jun Mohite is a classic example of enthusiastic Shramdaan. When we visited Jun Mohite, this was the scene. Apparently, in each of these villages, we find that a committed and concerned leadership is a crucial requirement for fostering and strengthening social consensus, purpose, and will. It takes time for people to realize the importance of Shramdaan. People have gotten used to government schemes in which no voluntary contribution is asked for, and they get paid for contributing labor. So, the concept of contributing the labor for free for developmental works that are for the common good does not appeal to them.
See, we only value and maintain and preserve what we ourselves have done. One of the great tragedies around is monuments are abandoned, even though at one time they were the pride of a particular nation or a particular person or a particular family. Those who came after them did not identify with that and so didn't bother to maintain it. Now when people contribute to making something, then they develop an interest, a stake in ensuring its continuity.
It often raises the question of ownership. Will doing so benefit us? The landless and marginal farmers fear that the majority of the benefits will go to the large landholders, and they are understandably reluctant to contribute.
The landless laborers ask, why? Why should we do Shramdaan? How will it benefit us?
It's a whole question of whose work is it anyway? Whose life is it anyway? I mean, if you're going to get benefits from something, then you make it happen. I mean, you contribute to that. If you can't contribute fully, at least a part of it, because unless you do it, it doesn't become part of your world, part of your responsibility structure, and part of your identity structure. And unless that happens, you can never say, this is my own.
Traditionally, Shramdaan or voluntary contributions are made according to the capacity of the individual. A landlord is expected to contribute a larger amount for a social project, like say, the construction or renovation of a temple or a public utility. So will the local shopkeeper be asked to contribute more. However, a laborer would not be asked to contribute the same amount. This then is the crucial issue. Who shall contribute how much Shramdaan? Will it be land use-wise or wealth-wise? In most of the villages, people contribute equally to watershed projects.
We decided that all the families should contribute equally, irrespective of their status or earnings.
In some watershed projects, all the villagers, excluding the landless laborers, are expected to contribute equally. In other projects, the contribution may vary depending on the size, slope, and productivity of the land.
Most laborers in our village voluntarily contributed Shramdaan, since they thought that by doing so, they would be a part of the program and have a stake in it.
This is often because the watershed project directly benefits them by providing them labor opportunities on a regular basis, and that too within their own village. Besides the wages, further opportunities open up after the project is over in terms of improved agricultural activity in their area. By participating in this way, they also stake their claim to a role in the decision-making of the project. Once people identify with the project and a sense of ownership develops, the implementation of Shramdaan becomes simpler. The youngsters at June Mohite too have caught on to the idea of Shramdaan. They approached Vijay Avare, the RRC in charge at Nandurbar, for a cricket ground, since they had lost their playground to the watershed treatments. Vijay asked them to do Shramdaan and make their own playground. The playground is now an arena for seriously contested matches. The youngsters have understood the power of Shramdaan. The practice of Shramdaan is growing as people come to appreciate its power and potential. People are realizing that finally it is they alone who have to help themselves. Waiting for the government to help them at their doorsteps is going to be a long, if not futile, wait.
We had sent several proposals to the government through a Gram Panchayat, like constructing bunds, percolation tanks, bringing water to the village. However, each time the proposals used to be turned down due to lack of funds.
The farmers of Sangamner have realized this and have begun taking the initiative.
We requested water to give us a program for cultivation of pomegranates and other fruits. They agreed to fund us 25% and asked us to contribute remaining 75% for the plantation. We agreed, and now I am earning a lucrative income of 40 to 50,000 rupees per acre from my land.
Other farmers in this area are catching up, and now there's a clamor for this. Finally, self-help is being realized as the real solution to their problems. But how do non-governmental organizations and funding agencies react to the concept of contribution from the people?
Theoretically speaking, the people should contribute 100%, and we should contribute perhaps a part of it, a very small amount. But the fact remains that we are only insisting on 20% because the people with whom we are working are living lives that are very on the edge of survival in a way. Their existence is very precarious. You see, they are all rain-fed farmers. So if the rains fail, I mean, they've had it. All their investments go down the drain, all the crops get burnt, they have to migrate. For them, existence is daily survival. And so even that 20% is fairly large, but they contribute that much. Now when people contribute to making something, then they develop an interest, a stake in ensuring its continuity or its maintenance. So that's the other reason for demanding a contribution.
There are also efforts, albeit small ones, where people have contributed towards the full cost of individual watershed treatments, like the one here at Harnipada. Harnipada is a Swadhyayi village. Swadhyayis are a spiritual sect and believe in undertaking projects in their villages by contributing their services. They call this Shram Bhakti or devotion through labor. This dam, within the Harnipada watershed project, was built by the Swadhyayis under their Nirmal Neer project. Nirmal Neer means pure water. So how did the Swadhyayis achieve it?
We try to achieve this through the route of spirituality. We reach out to their hearts and ask them to preserve Mother Earth.
We never had any problems for contributing Shramdaan to the watershed project because everybody was prepared mentally due to our spiritual background.
But then, this is the case of one activity, that too a small dam, where it is possible to motivate the villagers to contribute fully, since it is well within their ability to do so. When you talk of an entire watershed project of the size of Harnipada, which is around 13 square kilometers, that is a different story altogether. The inputs in terms of funds, managerial and technical resources are immense.
Theoretically, there are 7 levels of participation. The topmost level is in a community where people come together voluntarily, identify a project, work together, and implement it. There is no external moderator. In most of the watershed villages, we are somewhere in the middle levels of participation.
The government of Maharashtra has used the concept of Shramdaan with considerable success in the Sant Gadge Baba Gram Swachhata Abhiyan or Village Cleanliness Campaign. Villages are supposed to form committees and introduce cleanliness and hygiene within the village. This means sanitation, cleaner roads within the village, garbage collection, wastewater disposal, purification of drinking water wells, and also cleanliness within the house. There is no financial support from the government except a generous cash reward for the 3 cleanest villages. Any village can take part in this competition. Here is how the people of Garaz, a small village on the outskirts of Aurangabad, took part in this unique competition and came out as winners at the district level.
If subsidy was given to this unique program, efforts would not be needed to convince people to participate. The people would have made a beeline to the project. They would have encashed the subsidies and the work would have been of poor quality. It would never have given the results we witness now and are proud of. This is the effect of voluntary participation.
It is not just the hygiene and sanitation levels that improved with this exercise. It also enabled the people of Garaz to ponder and reflect. It has added a new dimension of collective reflection and action. Here is a village which has realized the importance of Shramdaan. No religious spiels, no political motivations, just a desire for a better life and the willingness to work for it. Each village has its own set of problems. We have to consider various factors like the landholding pattern, wealth distribution, social structure, rainfall pattern, productivity of the land, mindset of the people, literacy levels, political groups, and local leadership. Each factor affects the project, affects the process of Shramdaan, of collective will and consensus. It is finally the minds and the will of the people that will decide what they will become.
Because unless people think of their village as a common responsibility, and unless they see their contribution to its development as an investment both in their present and the future for their children, there is no way that we're going to have living, sustainable, economically viable villages. So for us, the whole issue of Shramdaan, the whole issue of the watershed project is not so much about water resource development or land development. That's part of it, that's the platform. It's about community development, energizing a people to take responsibility for their lives as a community.
And that's what Socrates meant. Development is more than just the planting of trees, the digging of trenches, and the building of dams. It is the mind of man that holds the key to progress